So tip number 1 will be create a table. So let's put some headings that we might use. Great. So if you then select the data you just entered, go up to Insert and click Table, you'll get this pop-up box and it will ask you if your table has headers, which ours do. So we'll select that and press OK. Okay, so now you have a table. There's a few different benefits of having a table, which are on the screen now. So now we have a table, we might need some data to put in the table. Now you might already have questionnaire data, however you might have to create your own. So one really useful way of doing this is to use a random function. So you go type rand and then go to array. Now it will ask you how many rows of data you want. So let's go for a few. And then how many columns of data you want, which I think we want 2. And then it will ask you for what the minimum and maximum values should be. So let's put them in now. And then it will ask you whether you want integers, which are whole numbers, or decimals. I think we want integers, so we will type true. And then when you've typed that all out, you press enter. And here is your data. Now another tip, which will be helpful for navigating around the screen, is on the Mac you can press Command and down, and that will take you to the end of the data, or Command and up, that will take you to the top of the data, or if you press either left or right, it will take you to the end of the data in that table. Now if you add Command and Shift and down, it will select all the data, and then if we just press right, still holding Command and Shift, we'll select the other column, and then we can copy it. Okay, so we want to put this data into the table. I would right click and go to Paste Special, and I would select values because we only want the actual data, we don't want any of the formatting. And I will undo that because that's pasting the wrong column. Let's do that again. So let's paste it in this one. So right click and Paste Special and values. Great. Now what we might want to do is also give people an ID so we can track whose score is what. Okay, so types of units there. If you just double click on this arrow, it should list them down there. Great, and let's get rid of this array. Okay, so now we've got our data. I usually like to center it, just because it's a bit easier on the eye. Now, these questionnaires are commonly used, and for each of these questionnaires they'll have certain scores which attract a certain label, which usually measures the severity of somebody's either anxiety or low mood or depression in the PHQ. Now, one way we could do it is have very, very long if statements which would tell us which category each score goes in. But there is a little bit of an easier way. So what I recommend is creating a different table. Well, not a table, a different few columns with the data in. So let's just do that now. So there would be a GAD minimum value and a GAD max value, and then it would have a certain label assigned to it. So now we want to try and create a column in this table which will tell us which category these scores go into. So let's just type category, and you'll see automatically it's now part of the table. Okay, so now we need to use an if rule, well, an if and rule together. So we press equals, that allows us to start typing a formula. So go if, and now what do we want to do? We have an AND statement because we want two conditions. So you type AND you put a open bracket. So what do we want to do? We want to see if this value is greater than or equal to this value. Now we need to change this value into an absolute reference, which on a Mac is Command and T. You can see there's dollar signs either side. There's also a shortcut for Windows. Okay, so that's the first condition. So we want to see if this value is greater or equal to 0. Great. And then now we want to try and see if it's less than or equal to the max value. So we click the same value again, and then the symbol for less than or equal to, and the value. Again, we need to make this reference absolute. This is because when the formula, so if the formula copies down, it always references the same values over here. Okay, so they're the two conditions. We close those. So if that's true, so if there's a value between 0 and 4, we want to put in this category label. Again, make it absolute. If it's not between 0 and 4, for now, let's just put other. And we can come back and change that in a bit. So let's see if that's worked. Great. So you can see there's lots of labels. The formula has copied down because that's one of the features of a table. And you can see there's lots of labels which say other, and a few which are non-clinical. So hopefully if we filter by non-clinical, we will see all the values in the GAD column are either between 0 and 4, which looks like it's the case, which means it's worked. Okay, so let's just clear this by selecting all. Or if you're on Windows, you can use this shortcut. Right, and now we need to do the same thing with the formula but for the other categories. So we delete other, and it's saying if it's false, what do we do? So what we do is we kind of repeat the same formula again. So if is, and then and. Okay. Okay, so at the end we put invalid, because it should be that if we've done all the formula right, any values which are not in any of these categories are probably no good to us. So we don't want them. Oh, too many. Great. Okay, so now you can see we've got lots of invalid data, which is probably not going to be useful to any analysis we do. So I think the easiest way for me to delete the invalid data and keep all the formatting that we've already got is to go sort by ascending, and then I'm going to select all the invalid values. Ooh. Okay, and now I am going to right click and go on delete, and we want to delete just the table rows. So you should see all the values on the deleted rows disappear. So we should no longer have, for example, a 200, 199, 198. So let's give it a go. Okay, let's have a look. Now let's see. Yeah, no 198, 199 or 200. So that's worked. And now we only have values which are useful to us, at least in terms of the GAD column. So what's really nice about setting up a separate table to do your values is that if you have a different questionnaire, you can just quickly alter things. So let's say this wasn't the GAD, but it was something else, and we had to change the values. So you can see these have been changing on the left. So now 18 is moderate. And let's say label 1, label 2, label 3. So these could be any questionnaires, and then you can just quickly change the labels, which is really helpful if you have lots of different questionnaires that you are trying to score. Okay, so we've only done the data for the GAD questionnaire, but one thing that's really helpful for data checking and for manipulating tables easily is the pivot table. So if you go to Insert and Pivot Table, and then select our range, which is all of this, which is table 4. Okay, and press OK, a new sheet will open. So you can see that you get this window or this graphic show up about pivot tables. So one way to view the data is to have the category as the columns. So these are the labels we set up earlier, and then we want the values in it, i.e. the data. So you'll see that's come up as the sum of the GAD, which if we're looking at questionnaire scores doesn't mean much at all. If you come down to here, you'll see sum of GAD. If you go on the information tab, you've got how you can summarize your data. So sum, that's not what we want. Count is what we actually probably want, because if you're just seeing how many questionnaire scores fit in each label. So let's press count and then OK. Great. So now it's saying we have 20 people who scored in the mild, 20 in the moderate, 15 in the non-clinical, and 26 in the severe. So there's should be 87 values of the GAD. What's really nice is you can double click on any of these values and it will show you the raw data underneath. So if you just wanted to see which values were severe and which participant ID was linked to them, you just double click on this and it opens up in a new table, and there you go. So you could sort it for a bit easier reading. So there are all your participants who scored in the severe category on the GAD 7. Okay, and then so you can go back to the sheet that you were on, and you can also have the average. So this will give you the average within each category, which might be nice if you're plotting a graph. So obviously with the averages you can get decimal places, which may or may not be meaningful depending on the questionnaire, but sometimes it's just nice to have a quick overview of the average, and particularly for very large data sets there's less chance of you making an error with different formulas.